Muito bom dia a todos que nos assistem no Brasil e nos Estados Unidos. Boa tarde aos nossos colegas de Israel, Tzoraim Tovim. O meu nome é Paulo Gitz, eu sou o trader senior aqui no Private Bank da XP em Miami. E eu gostaria de começar esse webinar agradecendo a presença de todos. O tema hoje é como a tecnologia israelense está ajudando a combater o coronavírus. Como muitos já sabem, Israel é referência mundial em inovação, sendo o país que mais tem startups per capita e também o que tem o maior percentual do PIB dedicado à pesquisa e desenvolvimento. Recentemente, muitas dessas empresas e uma parte significativa de recursos vem focando em achar novas formas de diagnosticar, testar, tratar, proteger e prevenir essa nova doença. O mundo inteiro está atento às descobertas referentes ao Covid-19, desde governos buscando soluções, a pessoas em busca de esperança, pesquisadores e cientistas buscando novas ideias, e investidores que procuram sinais de quando e como o mundo irá se recuperar dessa crise sanitária. Para nos ajudar a entender um pouco do que está acontecendo em Israel nessa batalha contra a pandemia, temos hoje aqui 3 empresas, trazidas pela Karen Nigri, da Ideality Roads, que faz um trabalho fantástico em conectar as novas tecnologias desenvolvidas na região com o restante do mundo. A Karen tem uma carreira de sucesso no mercado financeiro, na América Latina, e mudou-se para Israel há quase 10 anos. Recentemente, a Karen foi seduzida pelo ambiente dinâmico e fascinante de startups e ingressou na Ideality Roads. Eu vou passar a palavra para ela, que vai apresentar um pouco do trabalho da Ideality Roads e vai fazer a introdução dos nossos convidados mais do que especiais. É com você, Karen.
Obrigada, Paulo. Antes de mais nada, eu queria agradecer a XP, ao Beni e a você pelo convite. É uma honra estar aqui nesse canal, podendo compartilhar um pouco da tecnologia israelense e do que está sendo feito por aqui em termos de combate ao coronavírus. Eu vou agora compartilhar a tela com vocês. Bom, começar falando um pouco sobre o ecossistema de inovação israelense, dar um panorama geral, e aí a gente parte para falar sobre as tecnologias no combate ao coronavírus. Falando um pouco sobre a Ideality Roads, nós somos uma consultoria de inovação, e a nossa missão principal é usar todo o conhecimento criado e desenvolvido aqui em Israel em termos de alta tecnologia, e usar todas essas ferramentas e as lições aprendidas aqui para levar a inovação mundo afora. Tá? A gente tem 3 áreas de atuação, basicamente. A gente trabalha prestando consultoria a governos, ajudando no desenho de políticas públicas de inovação. A gente tem um trabalho já há vários anos junto ao governo da Nova Zelândia, onde a gente ajudou eles a desenharem um programa de incubadoras tecnológicas de super sucesso. Outro vertical onde a gente atua é a construção e a implementação de incubadoras tecnológicas corporativas. A gente também tem uma experiência aí pertinho na Argentina. Ajudamos o grupo Sancor Seguros, que é a maior seguradora da Argentina, a estabelecer uma incubadora chamada CITES, uma incubadora tecnológica, a primeira seguindo o modelo israelense. E também, super sucesso, a gente tem super orgulho desse trabalho. E o terceiro vertical é o trabalho de Technology Scouting, que é basicamente conectar empresas ao redor do mundo à tecnologia sendo desenvolvida em Israel. A gente nós somos a ligação, nós fazemos o link entre Israel e o mundo, como você falou na sua introdução. Então, isso é muito importante, porque existem, fora a barreira de língua, que é óbvia, existem barreiras culturais, diferenças de ambiente de negócio. Então, é muito importante ter alguém que ajude a fazer essa conexão e esteja sempre atento para não deixar que as barreiras, as diferenças culturais afetem o relacionamento. Tá? Agora, vamos falar sobre o coronavírus. A pandemia do coronavírus afetou o mundo inteiro. Estamos todos juntos nesse barco, Israel também. Talvez Israel um pouquinho à frente de outros países, mas estamos todos juntos no mesmo barco. E uma questão que ficou muito, muito nítida e muito óbvia com essa pandemia é a necessidade da transformação digital. Todo mundo sempre teve consciência, né, de que é preciso investir em tecnologia, é preciso investir em inovação, mas com essa crise, a partir do coronavírus, isso ficou muito evidente, né? E Israel está numa posição privilegiada nesse sentido para enfrentar esse desafio. E por que eu digo que Israel está numa posição privilegiada? Israel é conhecido como a Startup Nation, né? E em todos os tipos de ranking que a gente possa olhar, per capita, seja número de startups per capita, número de patentes per capita, engenheiros per capita, percentual de PIB investido em pesquisa e desenvolvimento, Israel se destaca, está sempre entre os top 10. Em termos brutos, lembrando que Israel é uma empresa, desculpa, Israel é um país super pequeno, são 9 milhões de habitantes, mesmo sendo tão pequeno, em termos brutos, a gente se destaca, por exemplo, no número de empresas listadas na Nasdaq, tá? Nós somos o terceiro país com mais empresas na Nasdaq, atrás dos Estados Unidos e China. E aí, se você considera a diferença de tamanho, realmente é um número impressionante. Existem em Israel centenas de empresas multinacionais com atividades de inovação, justamente para aproveitar e tirar proveito desse ambiente muito, muito efervescente. O ecossistema de Israel, hoje em dia, são cerca de 7 mil startups, mais ou menos, e, diferentemente de outros países, tem países que normalmente se especializam em um vertical específico, se tornam potências de agritech ou potências de cybersecurity. Uma característica interessante do ecossistema de Israel é justamente a diversidade. Para cada setor que você olha, existem centenas de startups desenvolvendo soluções. Tá? Isso realmente é um ponto super forte daqui. E, em paralelo, da mesma forma que o ecossistema e as soluções são diversas, também as multinacionais presentes aqui em Israel são diversas, né? São dos mais variados setores. A gente tem mais de 530 empresas multinacionais e todas elas estão aqui não pelo tamanho do mercado. A gente não está falando aqui de operações comerciais, né, de presença comercial, porque o mercado potencial consumidor de Israel é mínimo, né? São 9 milhões de pessoas, praticamente nulo. Essas empresas todas estão aqui por um motivo, porque elas querem tirar proveito da inovação que é feita aqui em Israel, elas querem participar desse ecossistema, elas querem interagir de diversas maneiras, seja através da abertura de R&D Centers, né, de centros de pesquisa e desenvolvimento, ou seja através de modelos de Open Innovation, investindo em startups, fazendo parcerias de Technology Scouting, enfim, cada uma da sua forma, mas todas presentes, porque não podem se dar ao luxo de não estar, né? A partir do momento que todas as empresas de celular estão presentes em Israel, não pode ser que uma vai ficar de fora, né? Ela não pode ficar de fora. Tem que estar aqui também para não ficar para trás. Agora, focando um pouco mais, falando de tecnologias especificamente relacionadas ao coronavírus, que é o nosso tema de hoje. O ecossistema de saúde digital, de Digital Health em Israel, é um ecossistema, um vertical super forte, é um vertical, uma dos principais áreas de inovação de Israel, a inovação na área de saúde, e a gente vem vendo tanto o número de empresas quanto o volume de investimento nessas empresas numa crescente já há vários anos. Tá? A gente está vendo aqui cerca de mais de 500 empresas desenvolvendo soluções nessa área, volumes de investimento enormes e só crescendo. E se a gente fala só em empresas que estão desenvolvendo soluções relacionadas ao coronavírus, são mais de 90 empresas, e desenvolvendo soluções nas mais variadas áreas. Então, a gente tem desde diagnóstico, como a gente vai ver hoje, a Site, que é uma empresa que faz diagnóstico, até telehealth, né, saúde digital, que é um setor que ganhou uma importância, um papel de protagonismo enorme agora durante essa crise, né, a questão de você poder remotamente praticar medicina, e, enfim, lidar com pacientes, passando por sistemas de suporte de decisão clínica, diversos tratamentos sendo desenvolvidos, também formas de prevenção. A gente vai falar hoje com a Migvax, que está desenvolvendo uma vacina super promissora, proteção, como empresas que desenvolvem tecidos antivirais, com componentes antivirais para proteger as equipes, aspectos sociais, mentais. Em diagnóstico é interessante também falar que tem várias maneiras não tradicionais de diagnóstico sendo desenvolvidos aqui, por exemplo, o diagnóstico por voz, diagnóstico por saliva, várias abordagens muito diferentes do que o padrão, né? Então, agora, eu vou passar a palavra, vou passar a falar inglês agora para poder conversar com os nossos convidados, e eu queria aproveitar para agradecer o Our Crowd, que é o fundo de venture capital mais ativo de Israel, que ajudou a gente a conseguir coordenar e colocar essas 3 startups incríveis juntas aqui. Realmente, elas são empresas que estão desenvolvendo soluções incríveis, estão tendo papel de protagonismo no combate ao coronavírus, não só em Israel, mas no mundo. Apesar dessas empresas serem israelenses, elas vendem as suas soluções e distribuem as suas soluções ao redor do mundo. Enfim, Estados Unidos, Europa, e eles vão poder falar melhor sobre vocês. So I'll switch now to English, and I would like to first of all, thank you, Manny and Daniel and David, for being here with us today. And first, I would like to invite Manny from TitleCare to explain a little bit to us about the work they are doing. TitleCare started as a remote diagnosis and monitoring tool, and they allow physicians to get clinical grade data on lungs, heart, ears, and throat. And now their technology is being used to treat coronavirus patients who are either in quarantine or self-isolation. So it's a very impressive technology. And now, Manny, I'd like to invite you to share also a little bit about.
Absolutely. Hi, thank you everyone. And just confirming, you can see my screen.
Yes, Manny, we can see your screen.
Yeah.
Excellent. Again, thank you everyone for giving us the opportunity to present how TitleCare works and helps local health systems, health insurers, and the departments of health throughout the globe in addressing some of the aspects of the coronavirus epidemic. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on what TitleCare does prior to the crisis, and how we became a scalable and successful company. So overall, the mission of TitleCare, as it was established in 2012, was to transform the way primary care is delivered by putting health in the hands of consumers. And I know it's a cliche-sounding statement, but the idea of the founders was to find a way to enable consumers and change the way they consume primary and urgent care by allowing diagnostics to be done at the home. And so this is what exactly the solution that the company came up with. The ecosystem in which we operate, and that goes to the buckets that Karen presented earlier. So we operate in the telemedicine industry. So we're not here to reinvent the industry. We're not here to displace the industry. We're here to make sure telemedicine works. The biggest issue with telemedicine up to date is that utilization and adoption of telemedicine was really low, both in the US, but also globally as well. In Brazil specifically, there were also some regulatory aspects that prevented patients from conducting telemedicine directly with their physicians. TitleCare build that trust bridge between a consumer and a physician to make sure that consumers and patients are now more comfortable on conducting telemedicine visits for the majority of their primary care and urgent care conditions, because TitleCare enabled the patients to do true diagnostic exams at the home. Even though with the COVID scenario, the situation is dramatically different and people are more open to consume telemedicine, still for serious issues, and I've just visited a pediatrician last week when my child had a fever and a cough, because without a doctor actually listening to my child's lungs, I won't be able to trust the diagnosis over video, even during COVID. And the fact is that myself and a lot of other parents were there, masked, but still visited the doctor because the diagnostic capabilities are not there and video is just not enough. And so what TitleCare created is a technology that enables a full physical exam at the home, essentially replacing the need of going to the doctor's office unless your leg is broken or you need to give blood for whatever diagnostic tests. And so we have an exam kit that consists out of an exam camera for any type of skin condition, post-operative wound care, and also an IR thermometer. The exam camera can be converted to a throat exam camera by the attachment of a tongue depressor. there is an attachment that converts the device into a full-blown stethoscope for a heart and lung exam, and an otoscope for an ear exam. Now, how is Taito different? Because there are other manufacturers of otoscopes and stethoscopes and exam cameras. All of these devices were designed for doctors, so only doctors can use them effectively. The biggest achievement of TaitoCare is it was able to take this complex diagnostic technology and put it in the hands of consumers so that consumers themselves can now conduct those exams. TaitoCare can operate as a standalone telemedicine platform. And in addition to our own diagnostic capabilities, we're also interfacing to best-in-class third-party devices, such as, for example, Omron blood pressure cuff and non pulse oximeter. That allows us to venture into sort of more complex chronic and elderly populations. And we also heavily invested in our API capabilities, allowing us to integrate with the wider healthcare IT ecosystem. So here, for example, in the US, any hospital system that is using Epic as an EHR, which is the largest EHR here in the US, we are fully integrated into that platform. So physicians can launch TaitoCare directly from Epic, and patients that are using the MyChart Epic patient app can schedule a Taito visit directly from that app. Generally speaking, before COVID, these are the typical conditions that can be diagnosed and monitored using the Taito devices. So as you can see, major or most of the primary urgent care conditions are here. This unique diagnostic capability at the home allows physicians, being 100 or 1,000 miles away, and those could be general practitioners or specialists. So, for example, if my child has an asthma and I want the pulmonologist to see my child, they can through the Taito device because I have a stethoscope and they can actually examine my child's lungs. These are the types of devices we have in the field today. So we have the home device that's designed to stay with the patient at their home. So think of, we have Alexa as the home assistant. So TaitoCare is your medical home assistant. Most of our users are actually healthy families with kids, about 85%. And then the rest would be elderly populations and chronically ill patients. And of course, COVID-19, I'll speak separately on the use cases there. And then we also have our professional devices, Taito Pro and Taito Clinic, which are designed for clinician-to-clinician interaction. So we're using them a lot with specialty care, traveling nurses, ambulances, school clinics, and so on. We primarily work in a B2B2C environment, meaning our customers are actually large health systems here in the US and globally, as well as insurers and employers, and you can see some of their names here. We now have, since our launch in 2017, after receiving FDA clearance, we have close to 70 organizations working with us here in the US. By the way, because we're an FDA-regulated device, obviously, and visa approval is needed. But due to the circumstances, the partner hospital we have currently in Brazil that ran a pilot over the last year was able to receive Anvisa approval in 72 hours. So essentially, any organization that wants to import Taito devices in Brazil currently can. Let's talk a little bit about COVID. So the benefits of telemedicine in any infectious disease pandemic are clear in a sense where using virtual care, providers don't expose themselves to the pathogen. Patients don't wander around and go to hospitals and clinics exposing other patients. So there are a lot of benefits of using telemedicine, but there are challenges. So challenges are, number one, is scale, right? So if you want to isolate patients at homes or in inpatient or isolation facilities, and you want true diagnostic capabilities to be present with the patient, you typically use carts, and carts are expensive, meaning you cannot deploy dozens or hundreds of them. You can deploy just a few because they're very expensive. Not only that, to operate them, you need a clinician. So somebody needs to expose themselves to the virus. And then if you want to put such capabilities at the home, you can't. There are no devices besides Taito that you can put at the home for an effective diagnosis. You can't put a pulse oximeter, for example, so that's great. But Taito stethoscope is super effective in COVID situations because with a stethoscope, you can detect early signs of pneumonia, deterioration of a condition, fluids in the lung, and so forth. And so the presence of TaitoCare allows the health system to keep patients away from hospitals and at home for as long as possible. So we now globally have about 50,000 patients that are being monitored due to COVID with Taito devices. and you see some of the hospitals globally in the US, I think about 17 hospitals in Israel who deployed the solution. We actually started in Israel with the 11 patients that were repatriated from the infamous Japanese cruise ship to the Shiba Medical Center, but now deployed globally to Germany, Italy, US, Canada, and Latin America. And so we see three populations in the COVID era that's using Taito technology. One is a population that has nothing to do with COVID. Those are just concerned consumers that have some sort of a health need, but will do anything to avoid going to the doctor. So that's a population number one, and probably the largest. And the two other populations are directly related to COVID, and this is patients that have positive diagnosis, and then the desire of the health system is to keep them away from that hospital bed that's needed for critical patients. And so TaitoCare technology allows the hospital system to maintain them at the home for as long as possible until either they get well or require hospitalization. And then the third population are people that are quarantined but are not yet positively diagnosed because there was not enough tests. They were not eligible for testing for whatever reason, but still symptomatic or suspect and need to be monitored at the home. So Department of Health, health systems, health insurers and employers are using this technology to make sure that they can effectively monitor patients at the home. This is a doctor from Shiba Medical Center. This became our signature hand gesture. This is the doctor showing the patient of how to properly do a temperature reading with a Taito device. I know we're running out of time here, so what I would like to show is sort of a brief video for you to understand how the technology works, and then if you have any questions, please let me know. So hopefully you can see my screen. So this is a doctor's view. This is our clinician portal. So the doctor sees the patients over video. This is the left-hand side of the screen. And then on the right-hand side, this is exactly where TaitoCare is different from any other telemedicine technology. Now the doctor in real time can conduct a full diagnostic exam. So in this case, they're listening to the patient's heart with a stethoscope. They can navigate from point to point. They can record heart rate. They can record all of the stethoscope sounds. They can apply different filters, so anything that a high-end stethoscope can do. But the main difference is that the doctor can be literally 1,000 miles away. And in the case of COVID, of course, not exposing themselves to the potential of the pathogen. And this is how a throat exam looks like. And again, one of the biggest achievements of TaitoCare is that having these capabilities at large scales, meaning thousands and tens of thousands directly at the patient's home, this is something that's not present in the industry. And this is an ear exam. Okay, so I'll pause here. This is a quick overview of what TaitoCare does, and I did want to mention that we have a successful pilot running in Brazil for a year now with one of the pediatric hospitals, and we see Brazil as a very attractive market for TaitoCare before COVID, and of course now especially to COVID, trying to address the needs of the local health systems and the Department of Health. Any questions?
Sure. Thank you, Manny. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very interesting to hear about what you've been doing. And I have a question. I heard that TaitoCare's platform is being used also at hotels dedicated to COVID-19 patients. How does that work exactly? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So hospitality industry, even before COVID, was an interesting use case for Taito, and now more so. The idea is that the Taito clinic device is placed in a hotel in a central room, or a Taito home device is placed in individual rooms where the patients are quarantined. And so much like the patient is quarantined at the home, or they're quarantined in a facility, they're in the room, and this is sort of this image also that you're seeing here on the screen. The device is placed in a room with a patient. You see it right here, and so physicians can remotely monitor each patient without the patients leaving the rooms or physicians being exposed to the patients.
Interesting, great. And another question: what about data protection? Do you comply with the relevant regulation? How does that work? Because you're dealing here with very sensitive information, right?
Of course, but the information is not different from any other health information that's housed on a medical grade platform. So we are HIPAA and GDPR compliant, and when we open a new country such as Brazil or Canada, we comply with all their local regulations. So absolutely, this is health data that's protected by regional and federal regulations, and we comply with the regulations in every country that we enter.
Right. And last question. Following this pandemic, what are the long-term changes and trends that you see regarding the use of telehealth around the world? How do you see that?
I think the entire industry sees this as a tipping point for virtual care. If adoption of virtual care was slow to pick up and adoption is slow, we believe that the way healthcare is consumed is going to be drastically different after the epidemic. And so companies need to be ready, both regular telemedicine companies, for example, with their physician staffing. So large companies such as American Well and Teladoc, who are the biggest ones in the world, in COVID, when COVID started, had 4 or 5 hours wait time. And so now they're back to 15-minute wait time. So the entire industry needs to restructure itself for the uptick in volumes. And we still believe that the key to adoption of virtual care for any major type of primary and urgent care issues, as opposed to, again, just a skin rash or a pink eye, will require home diagnostic technologies. And so we believe technologies such as TytoCare will be very effective in facilitating that shift.
You mentioned FDA and Anvisa as regulatory bodies, and you mentioned 72 hours approval of Anvisa. Do you see the same? Do you see the same regulatory ease on other parts of the world about telemedicine?
Yes. So TytoCare is cleared by the FDA since 2017. I just wanted to clarify. So it's not we don't receive the FDA approval due to COVID. We've had it for a while now. And Visa we received in 72 hours. And yes, to your question, we see some countries that is the regulatory burden. So Australia is one example. We received clearance in a week, as opposed to 8 months, which is the typical time it takes to approve technologies. So there are some countries. And with other technologies, not Tyto, because Tyto already had approval, but we see the FDA doing expedited approvals for a lot of drugs and technologies. So there is a lapse, not a lapse, but an ease of regulations, but I believe it's temporary. So, for example, with folks like Anvisa and in Metro, yes, currently we'll be able to import technologies, but this is also why we work in parallel with a local distributor to also plan the long-term strategy, because after the epidemic subsides even just a little bit, still we'll need to go through regulatory process of Anvisa and Metro approval. So, for example, folks from Brazil will have to go and visit our factory in Israel and audit it. So we need to prepare for this eventuality as well, as soon as, for example, travel restrictions will end and this will be able to be facilitated. So it's going to be important to plan in the long run, because these lifts and restrictions we believe are temporary.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manny. It's very interesting. Now we're gonna move on and talk to site diagnostics. So just let me introduce you to Daniel Levner, who is a co-founder, and just talking a little about the technology that site has developed. So you take 2 drops of blood and turn it into a clinically valid complete blood count. And how can you do that and have the results within minutes? So site has done it, and they have recently received also FDA clearance. I believe it was in the end of last year. So it's a very also promising technology. They are also working with the Sheba Medical Center, as TytoCare mentioned they are. Just to explain to people who are not familiar to Sheba, Sheba is the largest hospital in Israel, and it is one of the 10 best hospitals in the world. It's for the second consecutive year. It was named one of the top 10 hospitals in the world. So both technologies we're seeing here are being implemented and used by Sheba. So now, Daniel, welcome, and I'll hand over to you so you can talk to us and explain a little bit about your solution.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. You can hear me okay? I see the screen?
Yeah. We don't see the screen, we hear you.
My name is Danny Levner, and I'm the co-founder of Site Diagnostics. Site Diagnostics was founded in Israel in 2011. And originally, honestly, it was a technology company. It was a company that was saying, look, there's these amazing artificial intelligence, AI technologies, and there must be a home for those technologies in medicine. It's really only once we got deep into the medical field that we understood that there's a very particular need around bringing testing towards a patient so that test results can be available within minutes instead of days. And I'll tell you in a couple of slides exactly what I mean by that. We have two different products in the market right now.
Danny,
the first one came out
just a second, Danny. Could you try to share your screen again? We cannot see it.
Oh, sorry. Just a second. That didn't work. Oh, just a minute. Share screen. Share. How's this?
Perfect. Now it's working.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Right. So there are two different. We have two different products in the market. The first one came out in 2014. It was our first foray, and it was actually a product for testing malaria diagnostics. And we have this product in 25 different countries around the world, and we sold over 1 million tests for that system. Places like India, many African countries, and even in Europe, we have these instruments. And this was actually a great technological success. It really proved to us that we can use artificial intelligence to really make an impact on diagnostics. The quality of this test was actually as best as the available test in the lab, but it was available in the kind of setting, a small lab setting that was typical for malaria diagnostics. Now, we have a whole platform. We have the ability to apply this AI to different types of blood tests. So in 2018, we started commercializing a different blood test, which is the complete blood count. This is what just received FDA approval, as you just heard. And I'll tell you in a minute what the complete blood count is, but the short version is it's actually the most common blood test worldwide. So this is the broad introduction. Let me now dive in a little bit. So as many of you know, when you go to a physician, it usually takes a day, 2 days, 3 days to actually get your lab results back. And there's a problem with that on multiple levels. One is that it means that the physician, while waiting for the results, is really treating you on the best available information, which is still incomplete. It's also a problem for the patient because the patient is sitting there anxiously for a couple of days waiting for the lab results to come back. And there's also a cost to this. There's an inefficiency. The doctor has to spend time, which they're usually not paid for, to review the results a couple of days later. You have to call the patient back. You might have to bring them back to the clinic and so on. And there's a trend in diagnostic medicine to say, let's cut this out. Let's actually bring the diagnostic testing closer to the patient. Closer to the patient, again, meaning that you get the results within minutes in your initial visit rather than in days of going to the lab and back. Now, this is a broad field. There's many different tests you can already get done within the doctor's office. For example, strep infections for the throat, you can get the results in minutes. But unfortunately, the most common of blood tests, which is the complete blood count, isn't available, or at least not broadly available, not available with the same quality within either a doctor's office or closer to the patient one way or the other. So just by means of background, the complete blood count is a count of different types of blood cells and other parameters within the blood. So how many red blood cells, different kinds of white blood cells, platelets, and so on. And it's used as a first line of questioning by the physician. So it's very commonly ordered. It's broadly indicative of patient health, whether the patient is suffering from bacterial or viral infection. And it's also specifically diagnosing for anemias and certain types of blood cancer. With the bottom line being that worldwide, there's about 4 billion of these tests performed every year. In the US, there's 450 million or so tests performed every year. And again, oddly, even though it's the most common test, it's a test that hasn't really been moved to this near patient setting. And this is what we've done. So we built this system that you're seeing here in the picture. We call it OLO. It's relatively small. It's about 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters on the side. And it's the first analyzer that's designed from the ground up for this complete blood count for this setting, for this near patient testing. And as you'll hear, with the ability to do this kind of testing from finger prick samples. And what it does is actually replaces the capabilities of this kind of large instrument that you're seeing in the left side of the picture, all of it within the small footprint. And this is actually really important for us. It was important for us to come up with what we call a no compromise system. We wanted to reproduce the quality of the results available from the lab and the breadth of parameters available from the lab so that a physician never has to be in a position to say, do I want this done fast or do I want this done well? We want to offer this done fast and well. And at the heart of our FDA approval is actually a seal of approval that we actually are able to do this. Our FDA approval establishes what they call substantial equivalence between our test and the test performed by large instruments like the one you're seeing on the left side of this picture. And here is a snapshot of our FDA approval, which we received in November of 2019. And now, again, we hinted at this idea that we can do sampling from finger pricks. This is a first because there's been a lot of talk about whether samples taken from finger pricks even have the quality of information, whether the blood from the finger prick is good enough to perform these kind of tests. And our answer is yes, and we're able to convince the FDA that, in fact, you can get high quality complete blood count results from a finger prick. And when we say finger prick, we actually mean a very small volume of blood, only 2 drops of blood. Now, let me turn to coronavirus specifically. CBC isn't specifically diagnosing coronavirus infections, but it's actually very important in the triage of coronavirus patients. So what you're seeing on this slide is a snapshot from a article that came out recently. And what you're seeing is a flow diagram from a triage in a hospital. So a patient comes in, the patient is showing the symptoms of coronavirus. They get tested with one of these PCR tests, but now they need to decide whether they want to hospitalize the patient or whatnot. You know, does a person you can just go home, get hospitalized, or in worse situations go into the ICU. And in order to do that, to make that determination, one of the first tests that they order is the complete blood count. So this leads us to some of our advantages. The system, as I mentioned, is small and compact. Other manufacturers have also tried to make systems small and compact, but unfortunately for them, because they're using old technology and they really push the old technology to fit in a smaller box, they had to make all sorts of compromises. So, for example, every time you use one of these legacy systems, you have to start with cleanups, quality controls, calibrations, and so on. Often you have to do these procedures multiple times a day and whatnot. And generally, the use of technology is just more difficult to the point where you need a more professional user to operate the instrument. Because we built our technology from the ground up for this sort of near patient setting, we use single-use cartridges. So for each patient, you just open an aluminum package. The aluminum package includes a consumable that you put the blood into, and that consumable goes right into the machine. The machine itself doesn't require any calibration. It requires the minimal amount of quality controls. Because we use these consumable packages, it doesn't actually require any cleaning procedures and so on. So overall, even in addition, on top of the fact that we can provide the tests easily and quickly, the whole overhead of the system is so much lower that it's much more convenient for labs or small settings to operate our instrument. And that brings us to our first application in this COVID world. You heard a minute ago about Sheba Tel HaShomer Medical Center. They have established a field hospital and an isolation unit where they're able to treat, evaluate and treat COVID-19 patients without potentially contaminating the rest of the hospital or other patients. And up until our technology, of course, they would have to take different blood samples, and they would have to take the blood tubes, clean them, and then bring them into their central lab for the diagnostic testing. And of course, there's some risk in that. They're able to do it, but there's a risk in that, right? You're taking known contaminated blood and moving it around the hospital. They were excited to take one of our instruments, which they're able to put inside the isolation unit. It's small, it's very easy to set up, and it gives you the results right there and then. You don't need to take the blood out of the isolation unit. So that's a very easy application for us, and it's making an impact immediately in the COVID-19 arena. We're also seeing that same interest from around the world beyond Israel. Now, we focus on the COVID-19 patients themselves, but as the previous speaker mentioned, there's also collateral damage in other patient populations. So healthy people, or people rather that don't have a coronavirus and are suffering or potentially suffering from other diseases, are afraid to go to the hospital, or maybe the hospital are overwhelmed, they're asking them to stay home, and so on. And one patient population like that is cancer patients, oncology patients, who still need to receive their chemotherapy. And for chemotherapy, actually, blood counts are essential. It's important to count various parameters in the blood before it's deemed safe to give the chemotherapy to that patient. So what we're doing in collaboration with the Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv is actually a system by which we're installing our instruments, OLO, into vans, and these vans are able to go to the patient's homes. So these are sort of neglected patients who are collateral damage to the coronavirus pandemic. This is something that we're actually seeing continuing beyond this pandemic situation, because there are elderly populations and other populations that are less mobile who would appreciate having some of this diagnostic testing and will really benefit from having it come to them. Now, the last thing that I'll mention in terms of our R&D efforts is that there's a big question right now about who is really going to suffer from coronavirus. Of course, we hear that old people and people with pre-existing conditions are at most risk, but physicians are trying to figure out various markers to say, you know what, you're safe to go home. We don't think that the disease is going to get much worse with you, versus, you know, we ran a test on you and we're really worried about you, so we're actually going to hospitalize you. We don't have the answer just yet, but at the heart of our machine is actually the ability to take very detailed images of the patient's blood. You're seeing a small example here on the left side of the screen. And what we found in the past through other experiments is that these images of the patient blood actually contain a lot more information that goes beyond the few parameters that a complete blood count gives you. We currently have a research program in collaboration with some of the hospitals that I mentioned, which is allowing us to look for markers for the severity of disease in these images of patient blood, which we're collecting anyway through the diagnosis of COVID patients. So in general, we're very excited that we have the opportunity to help people either with COVID or indirectly suffering with COVID. But the need for our sort of testing will remain, viable, required, even past this crisis situation that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much. I have a question. You mentioned that you are currently developing an R&D project related to the COVID-19, and that you are recruiting partners. Who is the ideal partner you are looking for? Research institutions could be also in Latin America?
Yeah, look, as far as this particular project, we already have access to patient blood through this project with the Sheba Tel Shemer Medical Center. But in general, we're very research focused, because I didn't highlight this, but even though we talk right now about the complete blood count, we actually have a very general platform that collects these images of blood and then can look for all sorts of different things. in that blood. So as time goes on, we actually plan to expand the menu of tests, add additional tests to the same system. So really, eventually, we have a vision that our instrument, Olo, can become a one-stop shop for blood testing. We're not there yet, but that's our vision. And where collaboration makes sense, one is in developing some of these additional applications. But honestly, even closer, I mentioned that the move towards near-patient testing, the fact that we have multiple days that are wasted in the system and that there's multiple benefits to being able to get the results in minutes instead of days, that's something that we all appreciate intuitively is really important. But partners who can show us that in reality, in practice, once you put one of our systems, there really is a real benefit either on the perception or on the medical outcome. That's something that we would really enjoy collaborating on.
Great, amazing, Danny, thank you. And another question that people might be wondering, can Olo do antibody testing? Because it's another hot issue right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of those tests that we're working to add to the system. So we can't do it just yet, but in our lab, we've been able to look for some of these things as well. So again, with time, we plan to add additional tests to the system.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Danny. It was a great presentation. Very interesting.
Pleasure.
And very promising solution also. And now I would like to introduce you and to invite David Zigdon, the CEO of Migvax. Just to give you a little briefing about Migvax. Migvax is a new company. They are a spin-off, a special purpose vehicle by the Miguel Galilei Research Institute, which made the headlines recently regarding their vaccine development for COVID. So what happens is that the team has been working previously on a similar project on a vaccine for a different kind of COVID virus for poultry, chicken. And as soon as they heard about the COVID breaking, they began to adapt their research to this current crisis. So you're gonna hear about Migvax now, and it's really newborn startup here in Israel. We are very pleased to have you here, David, with us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, I am David Zigdon. I'm the CEO of Migal and interim CEO of Migvax. Migal is a multidisciplinary research institute located in the Upper Galilee. As Karen said, in the past 4 years, we have been working on vaccine for the coronavirus in avian. We have designed a system that can adapt itself very fast when mutation of the virus show up. Now, when we are facing COVID-19 in human, we have the opportunity to use the same methods to develop human vaccine. As you all know, develop vaccine is unique challenge and that require multidisciplinary team, and this is exactly the advantage that we have at Migal and as a non-profit research institute. So COVID-19, as you know, this is really a pandemic, and this is how it looks. The virus itself, it's like a tennis ball with a spike. The red is spike. This is in fact the cells, and this is a protein S that infect the cells, and in the virus itself there is additional protein called N that is inside the protein. So this is how it looks. As I said, we already work for avian almost 4 years, and we build the system. We analyze that it's not enough to vaccinate the chicken only by the S. So we also build the system that the N is included also there, and the N actually active the T cells. So this is how our vaccine looking. We have 3 proteins that all of them attach to a carrier protein that take all this protein via the mouth, its oral vaccine, to the body. By this approach, we have three advantages, and we generate three kinds of immunology response. One, the mucosal immunology. This is IgA, which is very, very important because this is the way that the virus penetrates to the body. We have the IgG, it's blast-based immunity. This is the S protein. This is the red, the big one is the S protein that is create the IgG. And as I said, also that we have the two N's that generate the T-cell immunity. And this is the experiment that we have with chicken. And I go to explain you this experiment. What we have done actually, that we vaccinate the chicken 2 times. We vaccinate the chicken, and after we vaccinate them, 10 days after that, we challenge them by the real virus. And I say massive of real virus. This is very, very important. And as you can see here in the graph, on the left end, this is the chicken that this is the negative control that we didn't challenge them. Here, the second from the left, the positive control is a chicken that they didn't get immune, they didn't get vaccine. And after we challenge them, as you can see here, there are most of them still infected. And this is the graph after 3 days, after 6 days, and after 10 days. If we go to the middle, we see the commercial avian vaccine. So also in the commercial avian vaccine, after 3 days, we still see the shedding, the chicken is still shedding with the virus. And after 6 days, almost the same. It's like almost positive control. When you say commercial avian vaccine, we say that now the common practice that the chicken get the IBV, the corona vaccine for chicken. And if you are going to the last column, this is on the right, this is our vaccine, MigVac vaccine. As you can see, after 3 days, the almost 15 chicken not infected, and after 6 days, almost 80% of the chicken doesn't infected, but more important that this chicken do not infect their neighborhood. And as we can see now with the COVID-19 in human, that the infection of each other is run very, very fast. So if after 6 days that you infected by the virus, you are almost clean, it's very, very important. This is the big advantage that we have at MigVac. So, is it going to be only one vaccine? And everyone tell us, if you are not going, there is Moderna that already running clinical trial, and the Oxford University also run the clinical trial. So who is going to win? So there is, and this is what JSK CEO said, that it will not be only one vaccine of the solution. There will be few vaccine in the solution. For the long term, you should show that your vaccine is the most effective one. So there are a lot of competitive in this area. As you hear, almost 80 companies are doing trying to develop vaccines. Most of them are mRNA-based vaccine that they are using only the S protein, and as we can see, and you can show in our preclinical trial, but it's actually it's not preclinical trial. The chicken is the patient, so the clinical trial for chicken. It's very, very difficult to have a preclinical animal model for preclinical, but in our case, when we did it in chicken, we see the patient itself. So as you can see in our preclinical trial, that only S is not enough. And moving forward, so for the project timeline, as I said, we are almost finished the vaccine for human to adapt the subunit vaccine to human from IBV vaccine. We are going to do safety, efficacy and safety in rodents in May 2020. Phase 1 clinical trial, hopefully we are going in summer 2020. And the next step of the development, we are going to meet with the regulatory authorities in order to get their permission for our roadmap. So the market is huge. As you can see, we need a billion doses requirement all over the world. And as I said, it could be, if you like to control this pandemic, you should vaccine almost all the people in the world. If you like to open the sky, etc. So the price range of vaccine is usually, according to the CDC, is between $10 to $200 per one, and our cost of our vaccine is relatively low, and we are estimated low single digit USD. The reason that, as I said, we develop it for the chicken, and the chicken you must use a very, very low price of the vaccine. So the MIGVAX advantage, as I said, we only based vaccine, so no injection. It's efficacy based on actual in vivo efficiency that we did with chicken. We see that it's very efficient. We use the 3 arms of the immunological pathway: mucosal, blood, and the cells. It's relatively safe because we are not using the whole virus, so it's not inactive virus, and it's not attenuated virus. It's really part of the protein that in the virus itself. So there is less chance for side effect. Because we are using part of the virus, the market it's huge, and with the way that we are going to manufacture our vaccine based on E. coli fermentation, which is well-known process in the industry, there are a lot of facilities that can manufacture our vaccine. And also it's very, very important that it's relatively easy to adapt. As I said, we build the system that can adapt itself when mutation of the virus show up. And we see with all the research that they've done that the mutation of the coronavirus is almost 30 times upper than the influenza. So with this system, we can adapt itself. If let's say that in the future will be COVID-20, COVID-22, etc., with our system, we can adapt the vaccine very, very fast and bring vaccine to the market very, very fast. So with that, thank you very much, and I open to question.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much for the presentation. We cannot help but wish you luck and success on your journey developing the vaccine. We are all waiting for it and hoping it will be successful and ready to be distributed soon. You already addressed the danger of potential virus mutation. You just mentioned that the platform could adapt really quick. And another question: how long does it take for the vaccine to be effective from its initial point? I mean, how many doses would we have to take to be protected from coronavirus?
So what we have done with the chicken, we gave 2 doses. We are going to check this in our clinical trial that we are going. We already have the roadmap of the clinical trial. We designed the clinical trial how it will look, but definitely it will be more than 1 dose, maybe 2 or 3 doses. We don't know yet.
Okay. Spread how long? I mean, how do you spread this doses? Matter of months or years? Do you have any idea?
No, usually what usually it's you are taking usually you are taking it in the first you're taking 1 in the beginning, after 1 month, and maybe after 3-4 months. This is what we see with other vaccines.
Great.
David, I'd like to focus a little bit more on the timeline of the development of the vaccine. And if everything goes right, if you are successful on all the phases, is it possible? I'm not going to ask you to give us 100% certain, but is it possible to have a vaccine before the next flu season in 2021?
I'm not. Maybe they will vaccine, but actually, all the companies that are now running the clinical trial, they say that maybe they finish phase 1, and in parallel, they will be allowed to do phase 2. Usually, phase 2, you are going to do it with limited people that are exposed to the virus, like people in the clinics, in the hospital, etc. That they are. The chance to expose to the virus is very high, but for all the population, it will take time. But also, it's very, very important. The issue of manufacturing the vaccine is a big issue. And as you know, although there will be the vaccine, but I'm not sure that anyone can produce vaccine to vaccinate all the people. Actually, now there are a lot of effort putting in order to expand the manufacturing facility in order to produce the vaccines.
Thank you.
Thank you. And David, last question, I promise. Will this vaccine be safe for immune-compromised patients? Will they be able to take it?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
If the vaccine will be safe for immune-compromised patients?
This is something that we have to see in our clinical trial. What we have done, actually, we have done with chicken, but we have to remember that chicken is almost all of the same. It's not like human that each one is different. So this is something that we have to learn during our clinical trial that we are going to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Paulo?
Okay. I have one last question, and David, I know it's not your expertise, but we've been hearing and reading the headlines about possible treatments, not vaccines, but treatments. We heard about remdesivir. We've heard about the malaria drug, the chloroquine, and do you guys have any views on a possible treatment and on the timeline of a possible treatment, and is there any hope on that side?
And that's a question for all of you, the three of you.
Yeah.
Actually, there is no for viral disease. There is no real treatment, and we know that it's not real one treatment to viral disease. But this is something maybe it could be improve the situation, reduce the time of treatment, etc. But it's not real treatment. And also, Gilad yesterday said that about their treatment that they shortened the time. They release it earlier, but according to the deaths, it's not significant. So I'm not sure. I'm not professional, and I can say nothing about this. But in general, is hopefully, as a person, I said, hopefully we'll find the treatment, and hopefully there is a southern wind that come and clear all the world from this disease. So as a personal, I hopefully that someone find a solution for this disease. It doesn't matter if it's vaccine, treatment, whatever it will be. We will be happy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, so I'd like to thank you all for spending this time with us. I mean, it was very important. It's a very interesting subject. I mean, everyone around the world is looking for solutions, vaccines, treatments, and etc. And thank you for your time. Thank you, Karen, for arranging this for you. It was very important for us. And let's try to make other presentations like this for our clients.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope I'd like to thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you the startups for being here with us. And I think it is pretty clear the high level of innovation being developed in Israel, and the potential that an engagement between Brazilian companies and Israeli startups is very, very high. We are here to help if anyone wants to connect. And thank you very much. Thank you all. It was a great webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.